Audition for Roger. Marker. Cruella De Vil, Cruella De Vil. If she doesn't scare you, you've seen the prequel. She wears the fur of dogs she tries to kill. Cruella, Cruella De Vil. Are those not the lyrics?
Dum da da dee, da dum da da dum.
Sympathy for the devil. At least that's what you'll have if Disney has their way when they tell you that Cruella's mummy and daddy were eaten by Dalmatians. Or some bollocks. That's right, hop aboard once more onto Mr. Disney's wild ride where they adapt all their animated films into live action. Although this time they're going with the Maleficent approach where they go all in on the baddie, which makes sense because they already did a live action 101 Dalmatians for some reason. And that means, I guess, that they were like, well, we need to do something original, you know? So, a film from the villain's perspective that's a prequel based on the animated film based on a book, you know? Original. Which, let's just first acknowledge how unnecessary that is. I mean, Disney villains are exactly as complicated as they need to be. Normally, they're the bad guy because they're bad. Yeah. And when it came to 101 Dalmatians, you basically needed a villain who was a foil to a load of dogs. Yeah, a woman that wants to kill the dogs and wear them, yeah, that'll do. Perfect. And because of that, Cruella's main appeal and lasting legacy has been her kind of distinct style and her look. Something they really leaned heavily into with the marketing for this film, by the way. And that's strangely why the character has really endured it all. You might ask why I'm delving into this, and that's because having such an ill-defined character outside of their motive to wear Dalmatians and the distinct visual of them wearing said Dalmatians means that the movie has both an impressive sense of freedom in exploring the character while also having an awkward devotion to the minutiae of what we know about Cruella. So let's dive in. The film follows Cruella through her early years, beginning with her as a child where she's something of a social outcast and bullied despite the fact that she's incredibly intelligent, strong and independent. Girl boss. She aspires to being a fashion designer, but the death of her mother sends her spiraling into a life of crime where she meets Horace and Jasper and her nemesis, the Baroness. The film is set in 60s and 70s era London, with Cruella trying to make a name for herself in the cutthroat fashion industry as she uncovers a bit more about her past and tries to settle some old scores. That sounds pretty good, I wrote that. That's the basic plot of the film, and like I said, with this character they have a relatively fresh slate, so they could throw in a lot of new elements, and they definitely do, like Cruella's mother or her trying to break into the fashion industry. And as much as the story has some padding, I thought the pacing of the film was actually quite good, even though it has maybe a few superfluous twists here and there. But overall, I thought it was quite a well-paced film, and it felt like they definitely took their time to do the story right and not rush to get us to the point of the first 101 Dalmatians film. And they definitely leave enough room for these characters to either grow or devolve to get to the point that we recognise from that first film. And yeah, they definitely took their time. I mean, the film is 2 hours 14 minutes, and as much as I was kind of dreading that runtime, I didn't think it was all that bad in the end, but definitely the ending felt a little bit drawn out. In its structure, it sort of oddly resembles a superhero film, which I found pretty amusing. Like, Cruella has like all those origin elements, and then, you know, she has a nemesis that she has to overcome, and she has like a dual identity and disguise. I mean, she's Batman, you know? One of the awkward origin elements they had to cram in there I found unintentionally hilarious. I'm going to spoil it. It comes pretty early on, but if you don't want to hear it, I'll give you 5 seconds. I mean, I'm not wearing a watch, but you get the idea. So, I think we were all joking when this movie was announced, like, oh, what, are her parents are going to be killed by a Dalmatian? Yeah, we're right. Yeah. That's exactly what happens. That's pretty on the nose. I bust my ass laughing at that scene. But I will at least say as the film goes on, they manage to recontextualize it enough that you kind of forget about the outright silliness of it. But the movie definitely has a case of the prequels, answering questions no one ever really thought to ask, like, where did Cruella get her car? What about her house? How did a cruel girl named Estella become Cruella. It's a thinker. Then again, I don't think the film really filled in all those prequel elements, and that's fine. I actually think it was better that the movie took its time, but I will say it leaves me with the unintended consequence that I didn't really feel like this version of the character does or would kill Dalmatians, and you could either take that as Disney watering down a classic villain or giving us a new twist on an established character, and depending on where you side with that issue, it might determine what you make of the film. But at least personally, there was too much good in this film for me to care about the source material, which she never held in any real reverence anyway. And I did think there was a lot of good in this film, starting with the performances. Emma Stone is perfect as Cruella. She has a real sinister swagger about her, but enough likability that you root for her when the plot demands it. Don't worry, I'm not going to go on and on about how great Emma Stone is. I'm not Jim Carrey.
This is a message for Emma Stone. I think you're all the way beautiful. And if I were a lot younger, I would marry you. And the sex...
Similarly, Emma Thompson is cold and entertainingly bitchy and just a really fun villain as the Baroness. Horace and Jasper are also pretty good, especially Paul Walter Hauser, who provides a lot of good comedic relief. I mean, it's just a fun ensemble cast and they play off each other very well, but it's not the only highlight. I mean, the costuming. I mean, wow, just give this film an Oscar for this. I mean, it's fantastic looking. The outfits are just stunning. It genuinely made me go like, do I like fashion? Clearly. Another feather in the film's cap is its soundtrack, which is full of generally period appropriate songs and hits you're bound to recognise. And yeah, there's a lot of songs in this. Sometimes it feels like a bit much, and it's definitely not going to win any awards for subtlety, but when it hits the right note, it hits pretty hard. Weirdly enough, the two best soundtracks of the year so far are Cruella and Tom and Jerry. I mean, what the hell is next? Hey, you listen to Boss Baby 2? Clifford the Big Red Dog soundtrack, man. You gotta get on that shit. Overall, the period setting of the movie just really works. It gives the film a very chic and cool aesthetic that really lends itself to the punk rock vibe that the movie is going for. And yeah, the movie is incredibly over the top, but I think if you go into the film with that mindset, you're bound to have fun. I mean, I'm not going to lie, this movie massively exceeded my expectations. And sure, maybe it was because it was my first time in a cinema in nearly 6 months, but I don't see how you couldn't go into this film and at least get some enjoyment out of it, because I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. Look, I'm not saying it's a stone cold classic or anything. In fact, it's not really even anything new. It's basically 2 parts The Devil Wears Prada to 1 part Joker. But I will say there was enough in here that I wasn't always confident knowing where the film was going, and I certainly can't say that for most prequels. I will also say it handled itself well enough with the familiar aspects that it never really felt stale. And with all that in mind, I think Cruella proves that sometimes it's good to be bad. Ugh, you hack.